joining us now on the latest from Capitol Hill and all the news. Senator John Thune of South Dakota. He serves as Senate Majority Leader. Leader Thune, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Joe.
Finally did it. And it's even called a vote-a-rama, isn't it?
Yeah,
the vote-a-rama. What would you call the journey to finally get immigration enforcement funded? What would you call it, and how do you explain it, and what did either side get out of that? What would you call it? It was a long, I mentioned Grateful Dead yesterday. What a long, strange trip it's been.
It is indeed that, Joe. And, you know, the marathon at the end, the vote-a-rama, which went on for, I don't know, 15, 18 hours, something like that, is at the end of every reconciliation process. But unfortunately, we had to use that because Democrats wouldn't fund ICE and CBP through the normal appropriations process. So we had to do it with Republican-only votes. It got a little complicated along the way, but we were successful in defeating all the poison pill amendments that would have taken it down. And this week, hopefully, the House will vote on it, put it on the president's desk, and we'll get those important law enforcement agencies funded. But it is really unfortunate we had to resort to this. I mean, the Democrat mantra now is defund the police, open borders, and we're seeing more evidence of that this week as they block now the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act reauthorization, which is a critical tool that our intelligence agencies use to keep Americans safe.
Yeah, and there's a lot of nuance and ramifications, and I want to stick with this immigration topic. There are some senators that are actually talking about Mark Wayne Mullen's plan, which seems drastic, and Democrats' hair's on fire about the possibility of not allowing DHS and CBP employees in sanctuary city international airports. I mean, we're talking about some major cities, Senator, Boston, Chicago, Denver, L.A., Philadelphia. There's some support. I don't know if you've weighed in on whether that would be something that you think is necessary at this point.
I've heard it suggested, Joe. Obviously, I think there is a high level of frustration at the sanctuary city policies and what they are doing to a lot of our major cities in this country. And I think the Department of Homeland Security, Secretary Mullen, obviously are coming up with ideas that they think would help at least incentivize a lot of these cities to start behaving in a way that doesn't give sanctuary to criminal, illegal aliens in this country. That's one idea that's out there, or a number of them that are out there. But frankly, I think the sanctuary city policy coupled with defund the police, coupled with open borders, these are just Democrat policies right now that are anti-law enforcement and frankly are dangerous with respect to a lot of America's biggest cities, and ensuring that those communities and those streets are safe and secure for people who live there. So, you know, we've got to do something about sanctuary cities. Now, whether that's an approach that makes sense, I haven't given a lot of consideration to that yet. I think there are a lot of issues that have to be addressed, but I do think there are. It's one among many ideas that are designed to at least disincentivize a lot of these big cities in this country to continue these policies that are giving safety and home to a lot of criminal illegal aliens.
And Senator, we've been talking about voter integrity. We had Jay Clayton on yesterday, and in reference to what's happened in California, and I don't know. I know there's a lot of other fraud that goes on out there, so I don't know what went on with the voting process. They have a bizarre system to try to count for all the votes. But you saw what the president said. You see some of the stuff. Maybe it's conspiracy theories online. But should there be a question in Americans' minds about that? And I feel your pain, Leader Thune, with the SAVE Act. Because if you don't have the votes, you can't do it. But you're not going to get any Democratic support on that. What is the problem with what is their position as to why that doesn't make sense to show voter ID? And I can think of some good reasons why you wouldn't want to if you were a Democrat. But this isn't the way it should be done. How do we strengthen our notion that voting has integrity in this country?
Right. Well, and I think that's a question for the Democrats who block voted against the very simple issue of voter ID, which we've put on the floor now a couple of different times. We've had the entire Save America Act on the floor a couple of times too, but we've had the specific rifle shot vote, if you will, on whether or not you have to show a photo to vote in this country, and every single Democrat voted against it. And it does beg the question, and you see a state like California, and Joe, you always hear about states being the laboratories of democracy, and if there are lessons learned from some of these states like California, it's that this is a really stupid way to run elections because it undermines the confidence and trust that people in California and across the country have in those elections. Now, frankly, you have to prove if there was cheating, and clearly that's something that you would have to do in California or anywhere else for that matter. But the fact that it takes days, literally days, to be able to count votes in a state like California, when there are other states around the country who do that very quickly and get an outcome and a result, it's incompetence if nothing else. And whether or not there was actual rigging is something that have to be proven. But clearly, this is a system in California that doesn't work and doesn't inspire confidence and trust in voters by the voters.
Senator, there's the motor voter law, California, AB 60. Automatically registers citizens to vote when they get a driver's license, and undocumented immigrants get AB 60 driver's licenses. It's supposed to be screened out that they're not able to be registered to vote, but already we know in the past at least 100,000 erroneous voter registrations got through. In California, I don't think will allow a federal audit at this point to know what's going on. Are you going to be? Is there any way to get in there and actually know what's happening in California? We know about Medi-Cal and how you can sort of. I think the big beautiful bill tried to get to close some of those loopholes. But there's things going on in California that the federal government is not even allowed to really look at.
Right, and part of the Save America Act, Joe, is not just show ID to vote, because a driver's license, like you said, could do that, but also showing actual citizenship to be able to register to vote, to get on the rolls in the first place. So those are both safeguards that would help safeguard our elections in this country, all of which, as I said before, Democrats in the Senate have block voted against. But you have to, if California, and I think that, anytime there's a federal nexus, yes, there'd be federal oversight. In most cases, at least, we have reserved the right to manage and run elections to the individual states. But California clearly has a system that does not work, as is evidenced and demonstrated every time there's an election in California, and it drags on for days on end, and voters, the vote comes in, and voters across California and across the country are skeptical and question the outcome and the results there. They've got to fix their process. But to the degree that there is a role for, federal oversight, obviously, we would take a look at that.
Yeah. I don't know if you've weighed in. I wanted to ask you myself, and you feel free to answer or any way you're likely to, which you do, obviously. But the whole situation in Texas with John Cornyn, and I know that, that probably, in your view, that he might have been a better candidate. I don't know. I'm not going to put words in your mouth. And then just overall, the Senate, the betting odds have flipped back to the Republicans slightly at this point. But there's a situation in Maine. There's a situation in Texas. Can you just comment on all those issues, Senator?
Right. Well, it is an even-numbered year, and we've had an election every even-numbered year going back 250 years now. So you're going to have a lot of these fights in different states, and clearly the map in the Senate this time, it puts the Senate up for grabs, if you will, but we feel confident. We've got quality candidates in all the key states where we're going to have competitive races. We intend to make sure that they're well-resourced, and if they are, in spite of the political and economic headwinds that we might be facing, I think our candidates can do well, and we can preserve and protect our majority of the United States Senate. We're even focused on winning some seats in their Democrat-held seats right now, Joe. And so you've got to be playing offense a couple of places, and we've got a couple of states on the map where we're doing that. But, at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the voters. But I would argue that the Senate is the firewall. And if you want to get any judicial nominees, executive branch nominees across the finish line in the next 2 years in the Trump administration, you have to have a Republican majority in the United States Senate. And so I think as people go to vote this year, they'll be voting a lot of issues, and pocketbook issues will be a big part of that. Those issues always are front and center for voters, and we need to make sure that we're talking about and addressing those. But I also think safe streets, borders that are safe, and neighborhoods that are safe is going to be a big issue. And that's one, as we talked about earlier, on which the Democrats are completely out of step with the American people.
Senator, I don't know whether, what you think of a Senator Paxton, and I mean, he's going to be the nominee. I guess you do support him, but if there was criticism of him, then people would say, well, the Republicans just, they want to make sure they keep that seat, so they'll back Paxton. Is that the same as what's happening in Maine? That the Democrats want, they want that seat so badly. I think they twist themselves into a pretzel to support anyone they ran up there with what we've seen recently. Is that analogous? What's happening in Texas? What's happening in Maine?
Well, to my knowledge, Ken Paxton doesn't have Nazi tattoos. Or sympathetic to Nazis. I think there is a clear, obviously, distinction there, and the voters in the state of Texas are going to have to decide who they want there. We want Ken Paxton there. We think keeping Texas red is good for the country. It preserves the majority of the United States Senate. State of Maine, the voters there are going to have to make a decision. They've got a primary today, but this guy has a ton of liabilities, and a misogynist Nazi is. If that's what the Democrat Party in this country wants to endorse and subscribe to, they've got a candidate for that. But we think that Susan Collins will win re-election there based upon her record of accomplishment and the way that she represents and serves the people of Maine. Each of those states are different, going to be treated differently, but I'm confident we win in Texas, and I'm also confident we win in Maine.
How much money do you plan to spend defending each of those seats?
Well, Becky, the couple things about that. Obviously, we identified early on. We knew we were going to be in Maine. Texas is a different scenario, obviously, and we're certainly hopeful that the president and his allies will weigh in heavily in the state of Texas. It's a very expensive state, but the Democrat nominee down there is a far left liberal on so many levels, and completely, I think, out of step with certainly a majority of voters in the state of Texas. And he will have to be he will have to be defined through the course of this election. That's going to take resources, but there are lots of folks out there who are going to be invested in retaining a Republican majority in the United States Senate. We will be specifically focused, as I said, on a number of states that we have identified where we've got competitive races, and of course Maine being one of those. But we're hoping that there will be others who step in and help in places like Texas.
Senator, I can't remember exactly how many votes Kevin Warsh got the first time around. I mean, do you think Todd Blanche is possibly could get confirmation? You won't get any Senate. You won't get any Democrats. You know that. You think you got enough Republicans for him to become permanent AG?
Well, the one thing that we will ensure, and he worked closely with us during reconciliation. He's obviously, he's experienced. He's been serving there, and obviously we will ensure that he gets a fair process. Senator Grassley chairs the Judiciary Committee. He would have to come through that committee, to be reported out to the floor, and then the confirmation vote on the floor would follow. And obviously we will ensure that he has a fair process. He'll have to make his arguments, and I think the one thing that obviously people are paying a lot of attention to is this question around the weaponization fund, and the questions that he's answered around that already I would expect will continue to be a factor through the course of the confirmation process. But clearly experienced and qualified, and as I said, he's somebody that many of us have worked with, and so we will ensure that he gets a fair shot, and on a confirmation, if he comes out of the committee, a vote on the floor. Now, how many votes he gets on the floor remains to be seen, but my expectation is we wouldn't bring him to the floor unless we thought we could win.
And just real quick, will you be behind another reconciliation bill if Speaker Johnson pushes one?
We are obviously open to that, Joe. Clearly a reconciliation 3.0 is something that's been considered and talked about. There have to be a specific reason for doing it, and you have to ensure that you've got 218 in the House and 50 votes in the Senate for it. These have become increasingly hard as we've gotten into this year, and a few of these primaries have gotten behind us. There are votes that are harder to get now in the Senate on some of these things, but we did fend off a lot of really bad poison pill amendments last week on the last reconciliation bill. What happens on the next one remains to be seen, but we're not ruling it out. Let me put it that way. Open to it, but also recognizing it has some serious challenges ahead of it if we get another reconciliation bill on the floor of the Senate.
That's interesting.
Great, Senator. Thanks for all your time this morning, and hope to see you again in the near future.
Good to be with you all. Thanks, Joe.
Okay.
See you.
Okay.